You don't have to be a star baby. You don't have to be a star baby to be on my show. You don't have to be a star baby, but you gotta be absolutely bold. So, of course, I'm going to shake my pom poms. I'm going to shake my pom poms. I'm going to shake my pom poms today because, hey, welcome to the Little Hut podcast. Brown on Cleveland. Of course, you got your girl, Kimberly F. Brown. And of course, listen, I am solo tonight. Nobody showed up to be my co host, but that's okay. So, before we get into the topic for tonight, of course, I got to say hello to my girls. One, Aletha Johnson, of Dream Team Realty. Gotta say hello to her. Why? Because she's my favorite realtor. So if you're looking for a single home, commercial property, whatever the case may be, call Aletha Johnson at 375-3681. Then, too, don't forget about Angie Marie of New Beginnings 1111 Creations. So if you're looking for t-shirts, hoodies, jackets, tumblers, cups, mugs, team uniforms, or even campaign t shirts. Call Angie Marie for a sweet deal at 216 395 7335. Again, welcome inside the Little Hut podcast. And of course, you got Kimberly Brown with Brown, 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 simply Brown on Cleveland. Now, before we start today, I want to say congratulations to Sandra Morgan. She's now the interim mayor of East Cleveland. She received the appointment, and I hope that the council and the people of the city of East Cleveland will give her a fair shake and allow her to do the job that she is appointed to do. After all, somebody got to oversee East Cleveland in order to turn a wrong into a right. So I will shake my pom poms for her without a doubt. So tonight's topic is, of course, is 5 years of injustice. 500 years of injustice. I want to take you down memory lane to revisit the case of a young man, and his name is Frankie Porter. So tonight's topic is about the Frankie Porter story. And I want to take you down the road to Summit County, and let's visit the city of Akron, Ohio. Let's go back to 1991. 1991, there were four teenagers who decided to go out and rob various restaurants and establishments. So when they were robbing these establishments, from everything I've been reading and understanding, and sidebar, I did do a story on Newsbreak, and I also had the opportunity to sit down with Porter's sisters. And that interview is on the Little Hut podcast channel, my YouTube channel. But getting back to the story at hand, these young men, they made unnecessary criminal history when they decided to go into various establishments and rob them. What they would do during the robbery, they would put the patrons and the staff inside the cooler. And after they would rob them and put them inside the cooler, it is my understanding that the guy, Frankie Porter, who was deemed the leader of the bunch, that he would be the one who would call the police and tell the police that the establishment had been robbed and that people were placed in the cooler. After robbing so many establishments, of course, the four young men were caught. And during the time they were caught, of course, they had a trial. It is from my understanding that three of the four young men, they had public defenders. Only one had a real attorney because his parents were in the position to where they could afford an attorney. Long story short, the young men were giving were given about 20 to 25 years. They didn't rape anybody, they didn't kill anyone, they didn't physically harm anyone. Psychologically speaking, yes. Were they cold in the cooler? Yes. Did Frankie call the police and say, listen, they're in the cooler? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So some people will say that they didn't attempt to freeze anyone. It was a place for them to put the patrons and the staff in an area where they would not interfere in the robbery because they didn't want anybody to get hurt. So they placed them in the cooler until they did their little criminal deed. They could get away, and then the patrons and the staff could be released from the cooler and be safe. The Frankie Porter story. After 10 or 15 years, the young man whose family, from my understanding, who could afford an attorney, he got out. He had a great bargain that he made with the state. He got out. The other two got out several years later. All three of them are free. They're able to live their lives, probably get married, have children. I have no idea about that. But the story I want to tell you about tonight is about the one who's still in prison. His name is Frankie Porter. He's from Summit County, the city of Akron, Ohio. Frankie received 500 years in prison. When the incident occurred, I believe that Frankie was over only 16 or 17 years old. Can you imagine having your son or your daughter commit robbery and the sentence that they get is 500 years? Giving someone 500 years is just like saying that they don't deserve to live. Again, he didn't kill anyone, he didn't rape anyone, he didn't physically harm anyone. As I scour the news and I look at various sentences for people who have murdered people and carjacked people, no one, no one who have killed someone, they have not received 500 years in prison. Even most rapists, they've not received 500 years. The question that I will pose to you tonight is this a case of miscarriage of justice? Let's talk about sentencing disparity. I had to look this up because I wanted to be accurate tonight. Sentencing disparity is when different people receive different sentences for similar crimes. This can happen when judges in different jurisdictions or judges within the same jurisdiction sentence similar cases differently. They say the reason why there is sentencing disparity, it could be because of bias, where sentencing disparity can be caused by systemic inequalities or different interpretations of the law. Last week, I talked about how people are running for judge. We got to be very careful, you guys, about who we put on the bench. That black robe is not for anybody to put on to become bullies. It's to distribute the fairness of the law. If consequences are to be served, that judge should be fair. It shouldn't matter about race, creed, color, colorism, sexism. All that stuff got to be thrown out. What did he or she do? Make the punishment fit the crime. They're also talking about socio-economic status. Sentencing disparity can be influenced by someone's income. This is the reason why you have some people who can afford an attorney, they get lesser sentences or they merely get off. But most poor folk, they got to get these public defenders. And I'm not going to have a conversation about their competence or their intelligence, but clearly there's a difference when you have a paid for an attorney or when you have a public attorney. That public attorney does not have the resources nor the time to deal with a case like this. Also, too, they talk about geographic location. Sentencing disparity can be influenced by where you live. You know, we have a new president in DC, and he stated that he's committed to law and order. If I were some of you, I would make sure that my house is in order. And when I say that, I'm talking about your children. Make sure they understand the law and the consequences. There was a 16-year-old, not to get off the subject, in New York City who recently got bined over as an adult because he killed someone. And when the judge told him that he was being bound over, he cried like a baby. And so did his mother. Of course, they didn't talk about his father because his father was not there. But he cried like a baby. He cried like a baby because nobody probably told him about the consequences of his actions. You kill somebody, you get bound over, you a teen, they're tired of teens doing whatever the heck they want to do, and now you got to pay the piper. But let's look at this. The Eighth Amendment of the Constitution condemns punishment that are excessively long or severe and are greatly disproportionate to the offenses charged. The question tonight is, Frankie Porter, was his Eighth Amendment of the Constitution, was his rights violated? Frankie got 500 years. But some people who know this story much better than a Kimberly Brown, and I started to have his sister come on tonight, but I figured I would save that for another time. They're saying that the Cooler Bandits, of course, we know we're four friends. They served 4 different phases during their incarceration, and they're struggling to confront their future, as most are back in their own neighborhoods. They're saying the reason why Frankie Porter got 500 years was not only because he was the deemed leader of the Cooler Bandits, but he did much more. But my question to you, before I tell you about the much more, I want you to send me a chat message. Does Frankie Porter, did Frankie Porter deserve, does he deserve a 500 years system sentence? Or is this just a system of injustice and sentencing disparity? So here's what they say Frankie did. They said Frankie Porter faced more than 500 years in prison, and he's still incarcerated. A couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Porter on the telephone. Now, this is what they tell me about Mr. Porter. They tell me Mr. Porter is a small man. They say he's about 5'4", 5'5", weighing no more than probably 140 pounds. Not even a big man. Big man serving more than 500 years. They said that Frankie, he had twice tried to escape before sentencing. They said that he threatened witnesses in court, and according to an account at the time, he told the judge to do an unnatural act. So let me be blunt with you, because this podcast is not for anyone under the age of 18. They said that Frankie Porter told the judge to suck him off. You know that stuff that people say. So I'm not going to be disrespectful or derogatory, but get to the point of what I'm saying, what he told the judge to do. He was then sent to Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville. They said that Lucasville is one of the most violent prisons in America. They said that Lucasville was the site of a notorious riot in 1993. A decade later, Porter was caught plotting bank robberies from inside the prison, adding to his sentence. The year was 1991. It is now 2025. And if my math is correct, it's been 34 years. 34 years. He did not rape anyone. Mr. Porter did not kill anyone. Mr. Porter did not physically harm anyone. Well, he did put them in a cooler, but he also made the call to the police to let them know that people were in the cooler. You see, because if Mr. Porter wanted them to die, why would he call the police and give the police the information saying, listen, you better get over there. It's just been robbed. People in the cooler. He would have never done that. It is clear that Frankie Porter was a knucklehead. Extremely, he was a knucklehead. It's very clear that he was not the model courtroom prisoner or visitor. Clearly he wasn't. It is evident that he definitely was not a model citizen in the courtroom. Some people have told me, they said that, Kim, the main reason why Mr. Porter got over 500 years is because the judge, who's no longer with us, rest his soul, he was a white man, white judge who turned beet red when Frankie invited him to do something. It was a mirror of courtroom disrespect. It was almost like, no pun intended, I'm going to shoot from the hip. It was almost like a runaway slave who blatantly disrespected his master. See, in those days, slaves were beaten, they got the bloody back, or they were lynched. There was no excuse, no rhyme, no reason that they can think of that would protect that runaway. Frankie Porter was not a slave. He was not a runaway slave. He was not a slave at all. He was a teenager who got with three other teenagers who decided to do something so egregious to get quick money rather than get a job. The mistakes that this group of young men made is very heartbreaking. Hell, three of them are out. Frankie is still there. Are you telling me that after 34 years, Frankie Porter lost the right to have a wife, have children, and to have a life outside of prison? Anybody who knows me, y'all know this. Kimberly Brown stands on the side of right. I don't make excuses for people's behaviors. I really don't. I don't. And I think that's like my weakness. Some people criticize me for that. I understand nobody's perfect, but all of us make decisions. Frankie made a bad decision. The man has already served approximately 34 years. What more can he do? They tell me today that he's a model prisoner. He's like one of the ones who is like a mentor now. When new folks come into prison, he's like helping them get through, right? He's getting his education. He's done a lot. But I think it's about time that the system gives Frankie another chance. Hell, if he mess up, ship him back. But he deserves another chance. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't rape anybody. He didn't physically harm anybody, you guys. He was a black boy, now a black man, who's caught up in a system because of bad decisions. Hell, we've all made bad decisions before. All of us, including me. I don't know what I would do if I just made a decision like that and they said, Kimberly Brown, you got 500 years. I haven't done what these other people have done. So, it's tripping me out today because I've been helping this family for a while now, and I just don't know how to answer it. Normally, the stuff I do, I can make things happen, but this is like real hard, and I'm not going to walk away. I got a strategy. I'm not going to walk away. I'm committed to this issue. I'm committed to this family, you guys. I fight issues that most people run from. They don't want to challenge. But here's what got me today, because I got to wrap this podcast up. People today, and I'm not against about the boycott stuff that people were talking about today. I just couldn't get down with it because with all the killings that are going on, with all of the educational deficiencies that are going on, with all of the corruption and the crime that's going on, with all the abuse against women that's going on, all these issues that we ought to be dealing with. Y'all sitting here talking about don't go to the gas station or Target to spend money. You talk about a one-day event. What about the lives of people? You talking about the DEI? I'm concerned about DIE, people dying in the streets. I can't get down with y'all, not with that. You're talking about following somebody who won't even speak to the average person if they walk down the street. I can't get down with that. I'm going to wrap this thing up. I was in Walgreens the other day. I had to get my medication. I'm at that age. And a lady was in front of me, and she had a copay. She couldn't afford her copay. But I had people in the line talking about the boycott and all this stuff. Yeah, shake your pom-poms. We ought to do all this. Shut American down. This lady needed $2.75. The ones who were talking didn't volunteer to pay for it. You know who paid that $2.75? And I'm not saying it to brag. I'm just saying this. If you're going to walk it, talk it. How can you boycott and you can't even help this lady get her medication? Man, sit down with that. Sit down with that. We got people who look like me that we put in position to have a political seat, not for a handout, but to help us raise the playing field. We don't want anything that we haven't earned. Know your history. But you getting them seats. And the only time you want to speak to people like us, people like me, is when it's time for re-election. Or if your butt get in trouble. And you want me to do what today? No, I can't get down that way. We fight the Black Women Commission of Cuyahoga County. We fight the battles that y'all run from. Somebody got to do it. I ain't perfect, y'all, but damn it, I can make some stuff happen. Frankie Porter story, look it up, investigate it. Tell me what you think. Send me a message. Let's talk about it. Frankie Porter is not the only one. We have a lot of men and a lot of women in this here prison system who look like me. And then some don't, who got a raw deal. Again, Frankie Porter, he did not rape anyone. He did not kill anyone. He didn't physically harm anyone. He told the judge that was wrong. But that did not demand nor command a 500-year sentence. Injustice or not, I don't know. My name is Kimberly F. Brown, and unfortunately, I gotta go. So as I say each and every Friday, hell, I was solo today, and I'm okay with that. I talk to myself, right? I know that you don't like me, and I'm okay with that, because I probably don't like you either, because that's what we have in common. But if you need me, like most people, call me. Don't talk about me, right? Because I will talk about you back, and that is a fact. My name is Kimberly F. Brown. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Little Hut Podcast. And oh, by the way, I want to thank everybody who supported the Women's History event that's coming on Saturday, March 29th. That event is officially sold out. So I thank you. My name is Kimberly Brown. And again, you have just been inside the Little Hut Podcast. Brown, 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 that damn brown on Cleveland. Have a good night.